these ashes have grown cold, we open the old book. These oil-stained pages recount the tales of the fallen, a frayed empire, words without warmth. The hearth has ebbed, its gleam and life sparks are but memories against dimming eyes. What cast my mind, what hue my thoughts as I open the book of the fallen and breathe deep the scent of history. Listen, then, to these words carried on that breath. These tales are the tales of us all, again yet again. We are history relived, and that is all. Without end, that is all. Welcome, everybody, to the podcast of the Fallen, Malazan Read Through podcast. I am one of your hosts, Nathan, and I have read the series multiple times before. And I am joined. We'll leave that in as a. We're still getting the hang of this podcasting thing, and I am joined by my friend Matt.
Hi, yeah, I'm Matt. I'm the first-time addict of Malazan, first-time reader. Yeah, I mean, I was hoping for the segue there, but it's all right. We'll figure it out.
We still don't know what we're doing, so bear that in mind. But I do like your mindset of already labeling yourself an addict. We'll see if that is true.
I don't know. It's been good. I've liked it.
All right. I am super excited to get started. We work together quite a lot, and so it's been a very tough temptation. We've had to stay away from talking about the series, which has been hard because we've read other books that the other has read and talked about them extensively at work. So it's kind of a change in our habits at work.
I know. We don't talk about anything. Antisocial now.
We hate each other now, except for when we come on the podcast.
Exactly.
All right. So what we can do is we'll start out with the prologue, and then from there, I'll just read the summary of each chapter in full, and then we can kind of go section by section.
Sounds good. Let's do it.
All right. Starting off with the prologue. A young boy named Captain Paran stands atop the wall at Mock's Hold high above Malaz City, observing the riots below in the city's mouse quarter. A bridge burner commander stands next to him, and Gnos asks if the first sword is dead and about the Seven Cities campaign. The commander deflects, saying that the best life is one that the gods don't notice. Another soldier approaches, and the two talk about the riots getting out of control. Surly, now known as Lacine, appears with two members of the Claw. She and the commander have a barbed and heated conversation. The commander tells Gnos that taking up the sword is the last act of desperate men. Gnos smells human flesh burning, but he thinks that it's an abattoir or a slaughterhouse. The commander does not correct him. And that is how the Book of the Fallen starts. What did you think of this scene?
I mean, I don't know. I thought that was a pretty intense opening. I thought it was going to be a lot more confusing to start, but so far I was like, oh, that was a pretty solid prologue. I'm intrigued. Yeah, I mean, I really liked how, what's his bucket? The author. Oh, geez. Steven Erikson.
Steven Erikson.
It's awkward. Anyways, I really like just how he worded it so well to make that. It just felt like, to me, how I was imagining it was just this gray, dismal, like battle scene on top of this tower, and you're just looking down like, this is terrible. And you just see these other kind of ominous figures approaching. And you just got this kid there that's like, I want to be a sword bearer type thing. I want to go fight. And then the one old grizzly war veteran's like, no, it's a bad idea. Bad idea. So I don't know. I thought it was a really good opening.
Have you figured out who that grizzled commander is?
I assumed it was Whiskeyjack.
It is Whiskeyjack.
Okay. Because I think they mentioned it a little later that they'd met. They crossed paths at one point or something.
Yes.
Yeah. So good old Whiskeyjack. So he's the bridge burner leader, right?
Yes, he's the leader of the bridge burners at this time.
Okay.
So I thought, my first 3 times reading this, I always pictured this scene at night because I think that my brain just figured that was a more dramatic, contrasting scene of like standing on the castle wall at night watching the fires below. But it's actually described as midday. and there's just so much magic and conflagrations going on that it feels like it's nighttime.
Gotcha. Yeah, because I definitely imagine the same. I'm like, it just feels like the end of a battle, like it's nighttime. It's just terrible. I mean, midday, still got a whole day left.
Yeah,
It's kind of wild.
yeah, I really like. So Ganoz is a noble, obviously,
Yep.
and he's there because his dad is some big merchant guy. And I love that he says multiple times, "I want to be a soldier, a hero," and Whiskeyjack just says, "You'll grow out of it."
I know. So he's a noble. That's right. I forgot his dad was the merchant. So he's a merchant in the Empire. And then the sword that's described, from what I've understood, that was like a high ranking official or something in the Empire before it was taken over or something.
Yes, so the first sword of the Empire, Dassam Ultor. Um, he asks Whiskeyjack if Dassam Ultor is dead. The first sword, you'll learn more about all that later, but the first sword is like the leader of all of the Malazan armies.
So he's like the head honcho.
Yeah, he's the
Gotcha.
head guy. And it is said that he betrayed a god. And I
Oh,
will not
snap.
say any more about that. I can say that because Gano says that here, that that's something he heard.
So he betrayed a god, gets killed. So this maybe this is like me just noticing too much too soon, but maybe I'll bring it up a little later. What scene was that? I think it was later on. I'll bring that up later because I had this
Okay.
thought.
And then they are joined on after another soldier comes and starts talking to Whiskeyjack. Um, a lady named Surly, who has now picked the name Lacine to go by, which means throne master in her language, um, shows up with two members of the Claw and has kind of a heated conversation with Whiskeyjack. Did you have any
That's right.
thoughts about that scene?
Yeah, because it threw me off. So the claw, I imagine like this big towering like beast or something, but these are just people, right?
These are just people.
Okay.
Have you looked at all at the glossary at the back of the book?
Oh, I totally forgot that was there. Claw.
Um, if you go to, let's see,
Oh, it's on the front page. Covert organization of the Malazan Empire.
yeah. Um, so I think you have enough context from later on, but the Claw is the Empire's assassins,
Okay.
and Lacine was their leader or is their leader.
So then she used them to take over,
Yep,
essentially.
you will learn more about all of that as we go on.
I imagine so.
And Whiskeyjack tells her, "You must be feeling confident in the Emperor's absence. He's not the only one who remembers you as nothing more than a serving wench in the old quarter."
Oof, pretty brutal.
And she tried to ban sorcery,
Isn't
which
she a sorcerer?
she is not a sorcerer.
Oh my gosh, I totally thought she was. So she's so then she's just a regular human leader of like a
Yes.
different from a different area.
Oh, regular human with blue skin.
Yeah. Yeah, because she's from like a different population, speaks that different language or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's right.
Nippon. So yeah, she tried to ban sorcery, and that's what the riots are about. Because in a world
Oh,
filled with magic,
can't.
banning magic wouldn't go down so well.
Yeah. Jeez. Yeah, that's not how that works.
And then just one last thing that I had um, is Gano says the world doesn't need another wine merchant. The world doesn't need another wine merchant. And Whiskeyjack, he opens his mouth to make the obvious reply and shuts it again. It took me until this read through to realize what the obvious reply was. He was going to say the world doesn't need another soldier either.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like, yeah. I remember seeing that or reading that and I was like, oh, She's just like, all right, kid, you do you. You go figure it out. If you die, you die.
Yep. And we'll see later, he finds his own way.
Yes. Yes, he does.
Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about with the prologue?
So just like to clarify then, so this is the city they take over. This is the capital city of the empire, or is
Uh,
this a different city?
Actually, no. Yes, I had mentioned to you at work that, by the way, nothing in the prologue or chapter one is on the map in the front of the book.
Yep.
So Malaz City is where the empire started, but the capital has since moved to Umta, on the main continent. Malaz City is on Malaz Island, which is an island kind of off the
Oh,
coast of the main continent of. Wow, I am blanking on the continent's name.
wow. It's like you've never read this before.
That is bothering me so much. I need to look it up. I promise readers that Kwantali is the
Wow.
main continent. Yes. I promise people that have read the books before, I have read these as well. That was a brain fart. Um, so I guess a good way to describe it is that um, New York City and Philadelphia were kind of joint capitals of the United States, and then
Yeah,
eventually the capital moved to Washington D.C.
it's good. It's a good comparison. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
because as we've seen, the Malazan Empire is very expansionist.
What about the Romans?
Very, yep. Erickson based them heavily off of the Romans. All right. If there's nothing else, we can move on to chapter one.
Let's do it.
A fisher girl and an old woman named Riga stand at the side of the road, watching a column of soldiers pass. The woman talks about the family members that she has lost to the wars. Suddenly, the old woman grabs the girl and speaks to her in a very intense manner. A soldier slaps Riga with his gauntlet, killing her. Once the troop has passed, two figures named Ominous and Cotillion appear, talking about their plans. They decide that this girl will do and summon 7 hounds to slaughter the soldiers that just rode by. Shadows engulf them, and the road is left empty. Later, the adjunct to the Empress, named Lorn, rides with a captain to a scene of slaughter. Hundreds of soldiers and horses lie dead on the road. Ganose Paran is back, this time a lieutenant in his early 20s. He believes that teeth and claws killed the soldiers and informs Lorn of the dead old woman and that a man and a girl are missing. Paran believes he will be stationed in the capital Unta because of his noble blood. Lorn takes him to the fishing village and deduces that there is more going on than random killing. She makes Paran a part of her staff and sends him to ask about the missing people. She has the captain tell her about the nobility in the military and, quote, it ain't pretty. A young girl walks up to the recruiting table and asks to join Dujek's host. She gives her name as Sari, and Aragon, the recruiter, is left with a headache and wondering why her boots are red when the mud here is green and gray. Ganose investigates the Imperial building in Garum, finding it full of birds and everyone dead, with all records erased. He leaves and doesn't look back. On the road, he reflects on the slaughter and is interrupted in his thoughts by Topper, leader of the Claw. He invites Paran to eat with him and takes him into the Imperial Warren to travel to the capital. When he exits the Warren, he bursts into the throne room and bows to the Empress, who remembers him from the prologue. Lorn tells Paran about his future and tells him to go home. When he returns home, his sister Tavor does not seem pleased to see him.
A lot.
It is quite a bit. It's longer than I was expecting. I was expecting to be able to do these in a paragraph, but a lot happens in each chapter. So,
I know. 100 pages into the book, so these chapters are long.
uh-huh. So we can kind of start with the first section. Riga and a fisher girl stand on the side of the road and watch the soldiers pass. What thoughts did you have about this
Well, I
section?
mean, first off, I thought that what's her name? The girl, I thought she died, but she didn't. She was kidnapped. Is as far
Uh,
as we know up to here.
yes, she is not. She is sorry.
Oh, that all makes more sense now.
Yes. So um, they're watching the horses pass,
Yep.
and Riga, the old woman,
She's a
uh,
witch, right?
yes, her arm shoots out and grabs onto the girl's arm. And let's see.
She like puts a spell on her or something.
Mark this truth. I am the last to speak to you. You are the last to hear me. Thus are we linked, you and I, beyond all else. Across the sea, the Empress has driven her knife into virgin soil. The blood now comes in a tide, and it'll sweep you under, child, if you're not careful. They'll put a sword in your hand, they'll give you a fine horse, they'll send you across that sea, but a shadow will embrace your soul. Now listen, bury this deep. Riga will preserve you because we are linked, you and I, but it is all I can do, understand? Look to the Lord spawned in darkness. His is the hand that shall free you, though you'll know it not. And then she's killed by a passing soldier.
Sounds right.
Um, yeah, so she dies,
Yep.
and then all of the soldiers pass, and she's left um, kind of wondering about the candles on the road, saying, "We need the twine." And then all of a sudden, shadows flow across the road, and Ominous and Cotillion appear and just start talking about their plans.
There's the two like shadow assassin dudes of like secrecy that we don't know too much about.
Yep, the two shadowy dudes.
Yeah. Because they're the guys that like feel like they know a lot and they sure show they know a lot, but we have no idea why they know it and that stuff. Like there's a massive air of mystery around them.
Well, I can tell you some of why they know a lot. If you look in the glossary and look at ascendants, you'll see that Cotillion is the assassin of High House Shadow, and Shadow Throne is the king of High House Shadow. So these are gods.
Oh, they are? That makes sense. So that's what, yeah, because he's like a powerful, um, the rope. Oh, there it is. Yeah. Okay, man, I need to look at this glossary next time. This answers so much.
Yeah, there's a lot back there.
Jeez. So yeah, so he is oh, that makes all right, that's gonna make a lot more sense, I assume, later on. Like book
Yes,
something. Okay. Wow. Yeah. No, I'm just like mind blown by that. So yeah, they're the gods and they summon the dogs, which I assume are just massive beasts that like you can't kill or something.
yeah. So they're the hounds are also ascendants, um,
Gotcha.
which as we go on, we'll learn more about gods and ascendants and how all that
Mm.
works. But basically, Shadow Throne summons the hounds and sets them on that troop of soldiers just to make sure that, you know, no one figures out what happened.
No one figures out that the girl disappeared.
Yeah, just slaughter several hundred people just to make sure.
But they're the Malaz soldiers and they don't like the Malaz dudes, from my understanding.
Yes,
They're like
they
trying to
are.
meddle with us all.
Yes, they are against the Malazan Empire.
Okay. Yeah. So then I assume these gods are like in the background playing their hand against other gods. And this empire is part of the center of it all at the moment because they're like the world power.
That is a very good take. That's a good way to put it. One of the themes of this series is that gods usually stay in the background because power draws power,
Yeah.
and they use lots of humans as pawns and other
Because the
creatures as pawns in their games.
because they come to the gods like, I want power. They're like, yeah, you do. I'll give you power. You want to be my pawn? Be my guest.
Yep,
I'd love
be
to have
my
you as a pawn.
guest.
Yeah, no, I thought it was super cool though, because like I remember reading that. I think I actually read up to that point, like when I first bought the book, because I just wanted to see. And I remember being like, whoa, that was actually pretty cool. Like I didn't understand a lot. I understand more now, but like just two shadow dudes pop out of nowhere, summon a pack of wolves and like takes out a whole army. It's pretty.
Yep.
I think that's cool.
And there's nothing that you would get in like a normal fantasy book, like who are you? And then they would explain who they are.
Yeah, he's just like, girl, don't talk. You'll do. You're coming with me.
Yeah, don't talk about us. And there's one point where I think it's Ominous says Cotillion's name, and
Oh
Cotillion's like,
yeah,
"Damn it, dude! Now we have to take her."
I know. He's like, come on. Now she has to be part of the plans.
She
Now we
says,
have to use her.
I've never heard of you guys before," and they say, "Well, too bad."
Well, now you have. You're coming with us. You know too
Yep.
much. Pretty solid opening scene. But this is like 13 years later or something or whatever it was, is what it says.
Yes.
Not 13, but
So the
like a few years later.
prologue is the 1154th year of Burn's sleep, and then chapter one is 1161st year. So yeah, 7 years later,
Okay.
and also the seventh year of Empress Lysine's rule.
So Lysine takes over. She's now the empress of all the empire.
I will give this disclaimer up front. Past, I think, like book three, Erickson, or maybe book four, Erickson stops giving dates, and he's made it very clear that he doesn't care a whole lot about the timeline.
Yeah.
I may have told you this before, but there's the joke that there's a reason that his calendar system Burn Sleep is abbreviated BS.
Because it just doesn't work after a while.
The further you get, the more the timeline doesn't make sense, and you just have to accept that things happened the way that they happened.
It's like it's the one thing Sanderson has never done. He's never given a timeline.
Not of the Cosmere, no, but there are
Smart.
fans that have in individual books have found that he has like 11 days missing in a timeline or something, and he cares about it and has a whole team of people that keep track of timelines and stuff in his books.
Yeah.
Erickson doesn't mind as much.
He's like, it works. It's a history tale. Things are going to add up. It's rough estimates.
Yep. It is telling a history. That's kind
So,
of what this book is. So
yeah.
all right. If there's nothing else, we can move on to the next section.
Let's do it.
So Adjunct Lorn, the right hand of the Empress, is riding with the captain, and they come upon the scene of slaughter from earlier, with people and horses torn apart and eviscerated all over the road.
Big mess.
It is a huge mess. Lorn later reveals that she is the Empress's mage killer.
Oh, so she's the anti-magic lady. That's right.
She is the anti-magic lady. And the captain reports of the soldiers, 175 men and women and 210 horses, all dead. No one escaped.
Or horses.
Many horses will die.
You're a horse fan out there, don't read this book.
Or do read this book and just be sad all the time.
You know.
Let's see. Did you have any thoughts about this?
Not too much. I just remember reading it like, oh, that's the dude from the prologue. He's now up there. But there's so there's the adjunct, but she's not with the one guy too much, right? Not with Paran. She's talking to someone else.
Yes, at the beginning she's talking to the local military captain.
That's right, yeah. And then Garen, Paran, I think totally different thing. Garen, League of Legends. Anyways, Paran, he's just out there scouting, seeing the battlefield, comes up, talks to her.
Yeah, and he has risen to the level of a lieutenant.
But he's noble born, so no one likes him because of it.
No one likes him because of it, and also because he didn't rise through the ranks. He's a lieutenant because he's a noble.
So lame.
And hasn't gotten there off of merit, which the Malazan Empire is kind of big on, but the nobles are starting to.
They're just kind of coming into it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, but this is the point where they're just really confused and they're like, what happened here? Because he's like, it's just like there's no signs of like prints, like damage or anything, no fur, just
Hmm.
like mysteriously all dead.
Yep, all
Which,
dead, no prints, no enemies dead down there. And then
yeah,
Lorn summons Ganos Paran, who it's said that he and his horse are both covered in gore.
yeah,
And she asks him, "What do you think killed them?" And he says, "Natural weapons."
yep, teeth, claws.
Yep, which when you think back to the gigantic hounds that came in earlier, makes sense.
Yeah, but that's probably the only time his armor's really seen anything, gross, I imagine.
Yep, he was stationed out here after his quote unquote training and hasn't seen any battles or anything.
Yeah. So, do we know how far this is from the capital? Because they say it's pretty far. Is this part on the map or is this part not on the map?
This part is not on the map. We are not on Genabacchus yet. Um,
So,
Topper, when Topper meets up with Paran, he does say at one point when they're, "We will use this warrant to cross the distance 300 leagues in a few short hours."
yeah, it's pretty far. But the
So I
war,
think,
so
oh, go ahead.
I was just saying, so the war is just like the magical gate to get crossed.
Yes. Um, and we'll talk about that a little bit later when it comes up, but I think a league is 4 miles. So it's at least 1,000 miles away. And this is just one continent.
Very large continents.
They are very, very large continents.
It's
Ganabacus is
exciting.
massive.
And so, okay, yeah. I mean, there's not too much else that happens here because after that, it's just more mystery to what happened.
It is a lot more mystery. Lorn does put it together with the Fisher girl and the dad. They say that a man and a girl are missing and not found among the bodies. And she sends or tells the captain to look out for recruits that are either old men or young women.
Yeah, that's right. But so if everyone's dead, then how did they know they're missing?
So I think it's because the village only has like 12 huts and they've kind of been playing
Oh,
guess who or matchmaker for what villager bodies match which huts. And like they found Riga dead on the road back there and matched it to her hut because it's the contents of an old woman.
yeah. But they didn't find the house of an old man and a little girl.
Yep.
Interesting.
Um, yeah. So Lorne is very smart, puts that together pretty quickly, and then tells Paran to write to Garum to ask around and find out which family consisted of a father and daughter and get me names and descriptions and use the militia if you have to.
Because this town is just part of the small area.
Yeah, this is just this little tiny village, like fishing village on the sea. And she sends him into the larger town.
Makes sense, yeah.
Let's see what else. Lorne asks the captain, "I would like to hear a soldier's opinion on the nobility's present inroads on the imperial command structure." And the captain says, "It ain't pretty, adjunct," and starts talking. So the common soldiers are not too happy with, as we've already said, with the nobles
Mm-hmm.
making their way into the military with
No
no merit or
experience.
anything. Mm-hmm.
So lame, noble people. It's like, come
Yep.
on, earn your spot.
Noble people are not fun. I like Paran, but
Yeah, he's not bad. I mean, he did go to the. Are we at that part where with the mystery house of whatever?
not yet. First, just a small section. Um, a young girl walks up to the recruiting table and asks to join Dujek's army,
Yep.
and she gives her name as Sari.
I think it's just such a funny name. Sorry.
You haven't seen the funniest names yet. One tradition is that Malazan soldiers get a new name when they're put in the army,
Oh, really? Hmm.
and
Didn't
you'll
know that.
learn more about that later. I can't remember exactly when, but
Yeah,
yeah.
sometime down the road.
And that young girl is the same Fisher girl.
And that's why our boots are all different.
Yep. That's why her
Yep.
boots are red, because she's been slogging around in blood.
Oh, I just thought the soil is different on the other place. That was my thought.
I heard that on a podcast once talking about the scene. I'm going to go with it because I like it, but it could just be, hey, where did you come from?
Like,
And she's just from somewhere else.
yeah. I mean, the blood makes sense. Yeah. Complete gory area
Mm-hmm.
pops up with the Lord of Shadows or whatever. I mean, it's kind of fitting. Goes together.
Yeah.
That's
And
what's
then we have the Imperial building in the town, and there's just a bunch of birds flying around, and everyone inside is dead.
and this is the militia, right? That the adjunct was talking about.
Yeah. So this is like the constabulary or the headquarters building for the Imperial army in this town.
Yeah. So I remember this was the wild scene where I was like, I actually read it through twice because at first I was like, what just happened? And then I reread it because I was like, because at first I thought they're like kind of in a zombified state. And then I was like, wait, hold up. And then I went back through and I was like, oh shoot, they're all dead, being just eaten alive or being eaten by these birds,
Yep. Being eaten by these birds, their faces swollen blue as if they
yep,
had suffocated.
which was interesting. I thought that was a weird note that they were blue.
I'm going to be honest, I still don't fully get why this scene is here. I think it's mainly to show that all of the records have been erased.
Yeah.
So,
Like
like,
they're not going to find out who that
yeah,
was.
M&S and Cotillion are taking no chances. But we do get a really funny dark humor line from Paran. Not a healthy thing wearing these uniforms these days.
But that was funny.
You'll get a lot of dark humor.
But so the captain was just sitting there with the papers and the papers are all destroyed, right? Like it's been sitting there for a minute, it looks like.
Yeah, so he touches the papers, and the sheets just fall apart as he rifles through them like they had been rotted or something.
Yeah.
And he just walks out, gets on his horse, and gets the F out of there.
Yeah, he's like, I'm not gonna hang around here with these dead Raven dudes.
Yeah, I don't blame him. I wouldn't want to walk into a building and
Me neither.
see a bunch of dead people.
I mean, you've already seen a lot of dead people. To go find more dead people, it'd be kind of sad. You're a rough
Yep.
day.
And his day's not even over
I know.
because he starts riding down the road and he's like thinking about his traumatic time walking knee deep through blood and horse guts and stuff. And then Topper shows up.
Hopper. When you say that out loud, I think that's such a funny name for a dark assassin leader, dude. Topper. Like, it didn't even
Um,
register with me, Topper. Now it just did. And I was like, okay.
yeah. Did you have any thoughts about Topper?
Oh, he's a weird guy. I mean, like the whole scene made sense. Like he's just like, hey, I'm the messenger. You come with me. I mean, it kind of reminded me of what's his name? A little bit of Wit from Stormlight, a little bit. Like I don't know if that's an accurate comparison, but there's just some mannerisms that I was like, this feels very similar,
Yeah, I could see that now that you say that.
which I thought was
Um,
fun.
he's dressed all in green. Literally everything that he's wearing is green.
Mhm.
And it is revealed that he has the blood of a Taistandi, which I don't know if that's the official pronunciation, but that's what I've heard, and that's what I'm going to go with. but he has the blood of a Taistandi in his veins, and he is also the one that killed the entire royal line of Unta when the Empire was expanding in that area.
So he's like a master assassin.
He is you don't get to rise to be the leader of the Claw without being a really badass assassin.
Yeah. Is that, I mean, where was it? Just remember the line. I don't. Crap. Oh yeah. The Tist Andy, that's just like another race of that's human.
They are not human.
They're a non-human race.
Yes. So if you go in the glossary under the people section,
An
all
elder
it says is
race.
non-human and elder race.
Gotcha.
So they're kind of an older, ancient race. One thing that you'll find with Malazan is that any race can have sex and breed with any other race.
Do not follow standard scientific laws.
Nope.
Great. Everything's thrown out the window.
Everything you've already had two shadow assassin gods kidnap a girl and massive hounds attack a train. That's what's gonna do you in. That's it.
That's it. Yeah, that's actually
Um,
pretty cool though. So he's just so yeah, he's the leader. He's there to get him. Yeah, I can't think of too much else. I thought it was really interesting that Paran was so hesitant the whole interaction.
yeah,
But
well,
then
he's been raised in nobility, right? Where you want to
yeah,
control what you say and not give
too much.
too much away. And Topper even kind of encourages him to stay quiet.
Yeah.
Like I think at one point Paran says, like, you know what, I'm gonna save that for my report to the adjunct. And he's like, good job.
It's like you're learning.
I'm gonna give you a nice pat on the head. You're learning well. I love how sarcastic Topper is because his first words are thirsty, Lieutenant. And then they have this whole conversation about how he assassinated the entire royal line. Such was my duty as a claw of unsurpassed skill, but you have failed in answering my question, which was thirsty?
You want a drink? You seem tired. I know. I thought Topper was pretty funny. I mean, as funny as you can be for a dark leader of the assassins, I guess.
Yep. Hungry? I hate eating alone.
Sounds so ominous,
Um,
everything he says.
and then Paran sees a curtain in the air tear open, and it is the Imperial Warren, which will allow them to travel from where they're at to Unta in a matter of a few hours. And Topper says it was carved by force out of what was here before. Has such an effort ever been achieved before? Only the gods can say.
I
I
assume
think.
we'll,
Go ahead.
I was just thinking, I assume we'll learn a little more about Warrens later on.
Oh yes, we will learn more
Okay.
about Warrens. Um,
Read and find out, everyone.
yep.
You'll learn
Read and
about them.
find out. I was thinking of whether to say more, but I won't say any more. I feel like that would be giving you more than a new time reader would have, and I want this to be as authentic as possible. So,
I know. You gotta stay away from Google.
yep. And then at some point when they're in the Warren, they stop and they see that there was a passage of something large and shambling, with slithery trails leading off into the gloom. And Prawn's like, "This is not as safe as he said it was." And they get to an archway, and Topper steps through, and Prawn can't get his horse to go through. So he kind
Oh
of
yeah.
just kicks his horse into a gallop, and he bursts into the Imperial throne room.
No. I thought that was so funny. And then he just like dismounts. He's like, "What's up, Empress?"
Yeah, Paran can be a sarcastic little. He can be very sarcastic and not a fun man sometimes. He hates authority. I'll just say
Oh
that.
yeah. He gives that off. I mean, sign of nobility makes sense.
Yeah, my horse was reluctant to make the passage, Empress, with good reason. And he smiles. Unlike me, she's a breed known for its intelligence.
Just love the self-deprecating humor in front of like the most powerful lady in the entire empire. And then
Mm-hmm.
Topper shortly after is like, "What are you? Are you serious?"
Well, Topper's like, what the you've met the Empress before? And he's like, yeah, I'm not going to tell you. She didn't feel the need to say anything, so I'm not going to tell you.
Topper's just like astounded by this whole conversation because at first he felt he was in the position of power. And now he's like, "Wait a second, these guys know each other."
Yep. Oh, and then I forget the reason that the place was full of birds is explained here. Um, Paran says, pardon adjunct, it seems that Death's heralds were birds. And were we to glance through the eyes of the dead soldiers, we would see little else. So they were talking about sending a necromancer to find out what happened. But because
Oh,
of the cloud of birds, if you look through the eyes of the soldiers, you just see birds.
hmm, yeah, man. I feel like I'm gonna have to read this more carefully because there's a few things you're talking about. I'm like, ugh, I don't remember that too well.
Don't feel these are things, lots of these are things that I didn't pick up till last time I read this or this time.
Yeah. Oh,
There's
geez.
there's a lot.
I know. There's just so much info. And it's like it's not even explaining info half the time. It's just a lot of info.
It's dumping terms and info and then saying, okay, remember this.
I know.
Um, I don't think there's too much more to say about this chapter, but Ganos goes home,
Yep.
and the guard at the gate recognizes him from the tapestry. And then he sits down, and his sister Tavor comes in. Doesn't seem super happy to see him, judging him a bit for running off to live the soldier's life. And Paran just kind of sits back, stinking, dirty, exhausted, and is like, "This place is much smaller than I remembered."
He's like, this is not nearly as cool as it was when I was a kid.
Yep,
Yep.
because as he rides through the crowd, he's wearing a soldier's uniform, and everyone just sees a soldier, not a noble.
Yeah.
So you had mentioned to me at work that you felt pretty good through chapter one.
I know. I did like I honestly did like for the most part. I mean, there's a couple parts like the scene with the birds that like I reread just to like pick up on that detail of like the blue in the face and stuff because I was like, wait a second, how they die? But I mean, yeah, it wasn't too hard. It was pretty easy to follow along, I feel like.
We may need to go a bit faster. We've been going for almost an hour.
Oh geez. Yeah. Better pick up the pace.
Oh, we've gotten through the prologue in chapter one. We only have three more chapters to go. And chapter two is definitely not,
It's not that long.
it's not complicated or hard to follow at all.
Mhm.
Okay, I can read the summary for chapter two. Tattersail stands alone on a hill surrounded by dead after the siege of Pale. She looks down to see Hairlock, still alive but cut in half by a wave of magic. He claims he has a way to escape death, and just then four bridge burners walk up the hill, including the legendary Whiskeyjack. They share sorrow for the aftermath of the battle, and Tattersail learns that Tayshrend, the Imperial High Mage, forbade the bridge burners from excavating the tunnels to look for survivors. The bridge burners have been cut down in one day from 1,400 to about 35 to 40 soldiers. Before the battle, Tattersail and Callet are summoned to a meeting. They've been sleeping together, but Tattersail denies, even in her own mind, how much he means to her. They arrive to find out that Tayshren is there and that they will be attacking Moonspawn today, a massive mountain fortress that floats above the city of Pale. It is revealed that the moon's lord is Anamander Rake, lord of the ancient Tystandi, and one of the most badass names ever created in all of fantasy. This sends fear through Tattersail, but they make ready to attack anyways. Tattersail and Calot speak on the hill before the battle. It's revealed that the Talon Imas marched into the wilderness after the old emperor was assassinated and came back at half strength. The battle begins, and chunks of moonspawn rain down as soldiers are obliterated where they stand. Hairlock and Calot are struck down, not from the mountain, but from the plain. A demon tears the High Mage Nightchill apart before being killed by her mate Bellerden, and the High Mage Acheronus is killed by Wings of Ice. A company of soldiers that had taken refuge behind Tattersail were slaughtered when an attack hit her that she needed all of her strength to defend. After the battle, Tattersail feels as though a god has arrived on the plain. She dismisses the thought, but her attention is instead drawn to the young bridge burner girl that arrived with Whiskeyjack. Quick Ben works a ritual over Hairlock and gives Tattersail the object that was used. It is revealed that the young girl's name is Sorry. Whiskeyjack thinks about how Sorry has Quick Ben terrified. They discuss what happened in the tunnels and watch the Moranth enter Pale for an hour of slaughter as reward for their services to the Empire. Their squad has received new orders to the legendary city of Darudistan. Tattersail walks through the Malazan camp, seeing the scenes of horror that follow battle. She enters her tent and unwraps the package given to her by the bridge burners. It's revealed that Hairlock's soul was shifted into a wooden puppet. She uses her deck of dragons. It leads with the Knight of Darkness, followed by Opon, the Jester of Chance, with a spinning coin between its hands. She chooses to hold and is delighted when Hairlock cannot hear the spinning coin.
Yeah, that's when I start getting confused.
It's a lot. I think everyone gets confused because you read the first chapter and you go, okay, this is a lot, but it's similar to some other prologues and first chapters and things like that. And then you get to chapter 2 and it's gigantic mountain obliterating thousands of soldiers, gigantic magical battle.
Because like usually it'll be like, whoa, big scene, let's develop the characters a little more. It's like, nope, new characters, massive battle. Like, just let's keep moving.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we start out after the battle. And speaking of confusing, in addition, this chapter is not told chronologically, which makes it fun as well.
Took me a second again. I was like, oh, geez, this is not in order. This is good. Where am I at? Oh,
yeah,
we're before the battle. Now we're after the battle.
This. Oh.
You're good.
Stuff like this is what makes it confusing, and I can't imagine doing this with audiobook.
Oh, I know. I was thinking that as I was reading this. I was like, this would be a tough audiobook to listen to. Unless you read it.
Before the battle, Tattersail looks down. She's surrounded just by absolute devastation. And Hairlock's upper half is sitting on the ground. His entrails are spilling out.
Somehow still alive.
I think he's keeping himself alive with magic, is what it says.
Yeah. Barely hanging on.
And then Tattersail looks up, and the Moranth, who the Malazans have allied with on this continent, the Malazans are right. You're supposed to root for the Malazans, and then they're letting their allies go into the city and just slaughter people for an hour.
Yep.
And then the bridge burners show up.
The remnants of them, at least.
There, 4 of them show up. I think it's Whiskeyjack, Kalam, Quick Ben, and Sorry.
Yep. Whiskeyjack. What a fun name as well. He has some fun names.
There are great names.
I've been enjoying these names.
And Tattersail recognizes the name Whiskeyjack because he's kind of a legend. And Quick Ben takes an object, places it on Hairlock, and starts working some magic over him that Tattersail does not recognize. And she's very impressed by what he's doing.
Yeah. I thought that was such an interesting scene because like Tattersail, I feel like because we find out she's what, over 200 years old or something.
Yep.
And it feels like she doesn't know anything because she's like, what are you doing? And he like does something in magic, and then she's just like, oh, that was strange.
Yeah, so it's revealed that it's soul shifting, and Hairlock says that what you're about to see hasn't been done for 1,000 years.
Kind of wild. So Quickben's a really good sorcerer then.
He's a really good mage.
Yeah. So the bridge burners though, they're a team, from my understanding then, of like just different specialties.
Yes, so the bridge burners are Marines or the elite. They'd be like the Green Berets or the Navy SEALs. But how the
Yeah.
Malazan army is structured is that I think, like most armies, is structured into squads
Yeah.
of between like 5 and 10 ish people, maybe up to 15. And generally, you'll have like a squad mage, um, some engineers, some soldiers, maybe an assassin.
Yeah.
Um,
So you have a whole team just to do that. But then most of the elites are killed in the collapsing of the tunnels,
yes, most of the bridge burners, what, 1,400, and they're cut down to like 40.
which is feels like that's kind of on purpose.
Yeah, well, they find out that the high mage Taishren, so Taishren is the absolute top hierarchy of the mages of
Yeah.
the magic core of the Malazan military, and he did not let them go look for survivors.
Yeah. He's like, nope, don't go look. We don't want them. Because isn't it that they're now worried that like there's going to be like issues with them eventually, or like they're not 100% loyal, stuff like that.
Yep.
Same thing with One Arm. Is that his name?
Yeah, Dujek One Arm.
Dujik
One
One
Arm
Arm.
is a nickname because he has one arm.
Yep.
um, but yeah, Dujek is like the absolute best military mind that the Malazan Empire has. And so Lacine took over in a violent coup, right? And
Yeah.
what their thought is that she's trying to take out the last of the old guard, which are the ones that served and were loyal to the old emperor.
Yeah, which would be most of the bridge burners, One Arm, and all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Um, so after that devastation, we flash back to a nice, peaceful scene. Tattersail and Khaled wake up.
Yep.
Um, this is where we find out that Tattersail is kind of fat. Yeah,
Not a skinny person.
the mage is small but well proportioned. Small but well proportioned body was snug in the many soft pillows of her flesh.
Man, that just feels even more fitting now. Just like Tattersail is just like she seems just like this naive, like just gets drug along into this type of
Yeah,
thing.
well, she gets drugged along because she thinks Taishren killed her lover.
Yeah, COVID.
Um, yeah, they have a meeting with the Mage Corps. Dujek is there, Taishren is there, and they realize that the Moonspawn's Lord is Animander Rake, who is super old, super powerful. And they go, "What? Why the hell are we attacking with like four high mages, and just a normal cadre or group of us? This is not
Yeah,
going to go well."
and it doesn't.
It doesn't go well. I love that Kalat says, "When can I get a transfer?"
Can I be done? I want to leave.
And then later in the conversation, he says, "So, about that transfer," and Dujek says, "Paperwork is hell when you have one arm."
He's like, yeah, that's not happening.
Humor like that in the military is one of my favorite parts of this series.
I know. It's pretty good. Like some of it I haven't picked up on as much, but there's just so much stuff. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
notation because he kind of comes out of nowhere and he's just like, all right, we're attacking today, and they're like, hold up, this is what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And then once they say the name of who they're attacking, everyone's just like, and we're doing it now. Like this is a bad idea.
Yeah, we're doing it within the hour.
I'm not ready. I just woke up. I want my breakfast.
Yep. Um, and then we see the battle happening, and
Just
Tattersail and Bellerden and Taishren are the only mages that make it out intact.
yep. And Ballardin's the friend of Tatian, right?
Um,
Or
yes, he
like,
does. He does like Taishren. He was Night Chill's partner. Night Chill is
Yeah.
the one that gets torn apart by demons,
Okay, yeah. Yeah,
and
there's
then
so many
he
people getting killed. I lost track really quickly.
yeah, and then he crushes the demon's head. But Taishan during the battle is just like shunting waves of magic off of him, and it's just annihilating the soldiers on the hill below him.
Hmm. Isn't he a giant?
Belladin is a giant, yes.
Yeah.
Taishan is just a normal guy.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. I remember. Yeah. Because he was the giant guy with the Night Chill. Night Chill's the smaller person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Night Chill gets torn apart, and then Belladin just crushes the demon's head between his hands.
Could have done that sooner. Rookie mistake.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
Like
like,
what?
come on.
What are they
First time.
doing? Following orders?
I know. First time in a battle. Jeez. Gotta protect your people.
Let's see. That's about all there is to the battle. Just slaughter, slaughter, killing, slaughter, chaos.
Just complete mess. Everyone dies because they lose what, the fifth and sixth companies or something.
Yeah, the fifth and so I think it's the fifth and sixth armies are devastated enough, and it's
Yeah.
later revealed that the second, fifth, and sixth armies are all
Kind of
have
destroyed.
all taken enough losses that they're being combined into one army.
Yeah. Yeah, because like Tattersail gets back to camp and is just like, that was a mess. And everyone's
Mm-hmm.
like, that was a mess. But they managed to break into the city, don't they?
Yes, they do break into the city. They damage Moonspawn, the mountain, enough that it kind of is tilting to one side and it flees away to the south.
Yep.
Uh, Chunks of rubble and debris have decimated the city, and parts of it are on fire. And they march in to take control. Um, and then Tattersail. Then we jump back to right after the battle, and
Yep.
Tattersail is with the bridge burners. Quick Ben is working his magic.
Doing the soul cat, not soul casting, but soul transferring.
Yep, soul shifting. This is when she realizes that Taishran probably had a part in killing Herlock and Kalut. The bridge burners have a talk about how they think someone is out to get them. Whiskeyjack kind of shuts the conversation down and says that he's going to think.
Yep.
And then I really like this line from Tattersail as she's walking through the camp. In some military headquarters back in the Empire's capital of Unta, 3,000 leagues distant, an anonymous aide would paint a red stroke across the Second Army on the active list and write in fine script beside it, "Pale, late winter, the 1163rd year of burned sleep. Thus would the death of 9,000 men and women be noted and then forgotten."
Yep. Yeah. No, I remember that part because that was actually the part I was thinking of earlier. Um, so this is like a total like tangent side thing, but like burn sleep, like this may be thinking about too much, but like burn sleep, like something's asleep. So isn't that like referring to like an old god that like was defeated and now is asleep? Is that like
Yeah, I will refer you again to the glossary under Ascendance.
that's what I assumed.
Burn is the lady of the earth, the sleeping goddess.
Okay, yeah.
So
So it's been
yeah, she's been asleep for 1100 ish years.
so that's how they're keeping time
Yep.
is from that. Yep. Of this age.
And then Tattersail is sitting down, and the package that she got from the bridge burner starts twitching, and she cuts it open, and we get Hairlock, the wooden puppet.
He's a real boy.
He is a real boy, and he is quite insane.
Oh yeah. No, because he's like, you got these cards, use the cards. Like you gotta do this, you gotta get my book. She's just like, what is happening here? What?
Yeah. Did you have any questions on the deck of dragons?
Oh, I feel like they'll be answered eventually, but like are so they're just like cars that predict the future is essentially is what they are.
Pretty much. If you go again to the glossary, you'll find a section on the deck of dragons, and it lists the high houses and the unaligned cards. Lots of these readings of the deck of dragons, if you know what's coming, you can kind of piece it together.
Hmm.
But basically, think of them as if a deck of tarot cards actually worked.
Yeah. So is this then referring to like, so if you play with these cards and it's like the Queen of Dreams, then it's referring to that like ascendant is like she's in play right now.
Yes, it does get more complicated than that because different
Yeah.
people can have different roles at
Hmm.
different times. People can have the same role. Sometimes it doesn't represent one specific person and more just
Just a guess.
a theme or something
Yeah.
like that. But here she it leads with the Knight of Darkness, and then followed by Opon, who is the Jester of Chance, and it's got a spinning coin. So the Opon has a Lord and Lady,
Hmm.
and the Lady's luck. I think I'm getting this right. The Lady's luck is good, and the Lord's luck is bad.
And it's just
And
spinning.
it's kind of like a playing card where if you'll have two kings or two jacks,
Yeah.
and they'll be merged. It's kind of like that, but it's a male and female, and their hands are joined, and there's a spinning coin
And it's
between their
just
hands.
and so it's just to find out whether you have good or bad luck then
Pretty
is
much.
essentially because then because she stops and is like, instead of telling the lunatic puppet, she's
Yep.
like, I don't know what's gonna happen, so that's it, we're done.
Yeah, I'm gonna go see Tasha. Bye. Do you hear anything, by the way? And he's like, just camp sounds. And she's like, huh,
Okay,
you
good.
can't hear the coin. Okay.
Perfect. Yeah. I thought that was interesting because it was like, I mean, the card system definitely will take a while to understand, but I assumed it was like the tarot cards where it was you play them out to see what a fortune is. But are they a rare thing then? Because the puppet dude was like this. He's like, "Whoa, you have one of those?"
Yeah. So you do have like you do have to be adept or have like some talent, like
Gotcha.
magical talent to use it properly. Um, I wouldn't say they're super common, but they're also not incredibly uncommon. Like your average peasant would have some idea of what the deck of dragons is.
Okay, that
Maybe
makes
not
sense.
understand it or what it does, just know that it's a thing that exists.
Like people talk about it. It's like it's common knowledge, but it's not everyone has them. Everyone knows how to use them.
Yeah, I'd say that's probably accurate.
Okay. Yeah, because that's what I assumed. Because by his reaction, he was just like, "Well, that's what you have. Like, let's see what it says." And
Mm-hmm.
so, and since it seems like there's limitations, him being a puppet at this moment, either he doesn't know how to use it and she does, is my guess, or
Yeah,
like just as a puppet, you can't do it.
I think the reason he asks her to do it is because he can't use it himself.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So if unless you have anything else, we can move on to chapter 3.
No, I don't think I do.
Okay,
I think chapter three added more to the confusion, but
let's go. Chapter 3. Paran waits on the docks for a Claw agent to contact him. The Claw hates nobility and tall bastards, but sees something that he likes in Paran. Paran will fly on a Moranth quarrel, a flying mount, to Pale. Tattersail finds Bellerdan still mourning Nightshill's death in an alley and offers to cast a sealing spell on her remains to keep the smell down. Whiskeyjack, Quickben, and Kalam talk about how they think someone is trying to kill off the bridge burners and the rest of the old guard, those that were loyal to Emperor Kellenved. The officer that told them to stop looking for survivors after the siege was found garroted, and Whiskeyjack thinks it might have been Kalam that did it. Whiskeyjack led a company that chased Quickben across the desert back in Seven Cities. They ride back to the city to meet their new captain. Tattersail performs another reading of the deck of dragons for Tashren, laying down in order Orb, which is unaligned, representing judgment and true sight, Virgin of High House Death, which is later revealed to be Sorry, Assassin of High House Shadow, who is the rope or the patron of assassins, Opon, and Crown, which is unaligned, representing wisdom and justice, and in this case, Darujistan. Tattersail misleads him about the reading and sends a message to Whiskeyjack that the fat lady with the spells wants to talk. Paran arrives at Pale and is escorted into the city by Tok the Younger, who has a patch over one eye. He explains that the situation with Dujak's army is volatile, that Whiskeyjack led his own army back in the day before everything went bad on Seven Cities, and Hood took Dasim Ultor's daughter before Ultor himself died. Tashrin has taken control of the army, and no one is happy about it. Dujak's soldiers are loyal to him and would follow him anywhere, even rebellion. Paran encounters Picker in the barracks, who is not impressed by him and tells him where to find Whiskeyjack. He finds Trotz, Hedge, and Mallet in the bar playing cards, and they tell him that the life expectancy of a bridge burner captain isn't very long. He's invited to play, but jokes that he doesn't want to take their money. He walks out into the alley and is attacked, two daggers sliding into his chest and side. He hears a metallic spinning and hears a conversation between Amonas and the girl about their objective to take down the scene, and that killing Paran should draw Lorn into the fray. The conversation fades away. All right. The first section, Paran is waiting on the docks, and the Claw, who hates tall bastards or just anyone who's taller than him.
I know. He's like, great. Not another one.
First, he's like, you stink of nobility. And then Paran stands up and he's like, you're tall too?
He's like my worst nightmare.
Yeah. But here's where you get a sense of just how gigantic Genabacchus is. Paran complains that he was let off here in Genabaris, which is on the northern part of the continent. Mm-hmm. And it's going to take me a year to get to Pale if I ride.
So long.
It's a long ways. But nope, he's going to fly over the ground on a quarrel, which basically imagine gigantic dragonflies.
Oh, I was thinking like a Nazgul from Lord of the Rings for a minute.
No, so they're described later, I think in the next chapter, when they land on the roof with Whiskeyjack, but they've got 4 super thin wings that flap super fast, long tails, bug-like eyes.
Gotcha.
And the Moranth also wear insect armor and speak to each other in grunts and clicks and pops.
Yeah, that's right. The Moranth. So they're the locals, right? That have teamed up with the Malazan Empire, right?
Yeah.
Okay. That's what I figured.
You can actually find where they're from on the map. Just west of Pale is the Cloud Forest and the Moranth Mountains, and that's where they're from.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
I did neglect to mention first, before Paran is on the docks, he's on the ship, and Topper appears again. And Hood's breath, man. Hood is the god of death. So you'll see that phrase a lot. Hood's breath, man. Can't you find another color of cloth? This perverse love of green must surely be curable. So Paran and Topper's relationship has not improved in the last 2 years.
Been 2 years?
Yeah. Chapter 3, or no. Yeah, because chapter 1 is the 1161st year of Burned Sleep, and the Siege of Pale and everything after is the 1163rd year.
What? Because he's been stationed in the capital then for 2 years.
I think he's done other stuff. He went through some additional training, went to different... Lorn mentioned that he was going to be posted in different places to get training and things like that.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Man, that timeline.
Yep. Topper says that Lacine feels that it is time for Dujak on one arm to be disarmed.
Entirely.
Entirely. Yes.
That'll make people work really hard.
Yep. I don't know. Do you have anything else to add about either of those sections, Paran on the docks or with Topper?
No, just that was funny that he just interacts with these claw members like in just such a nonchalant way. Like I feel like the claw like hold this aura of like mystique and like
Hmm.
power, and like you don't want to cross him, but he's kind of like, eh,
Well,
eh.
even earlier in the tent in the meeting with the mages and Dujek says that the Empire sent a claw to kill Pale's wizards, and all
Mhm.
of the mages are like, they're not going any after anyone else, right?
Yeah,
Right?
no, like the claw, like it's serious business, and I just think it's so funny how nonchalant he is about it. Just like, can't you change your clothes? It's ugly.
Yeah.
So that's why I think the guy eventually is like, all right, I don't mind you. You may be tall, you may be noble, but at least you're not too bad.
Yeah. Pardon for swearing. I know you don't swear, but I may swear
Yeah,
occasionally, but Paran does not give two fucks about authority.
I know. He's just like, whatever. I'm here to be a hero. Wield my sword.
Yep. Um, and then Tattersail is in the city, and a young soldier comes and says, could you come help us with something? And Bellerdan just has Nightshill's torn up remains in a sack
Just sitting
and
there.
is like mourning over her. They have a conversation. A little Tattersail tries to blame Taishren for the disaster, and Bellerdan won't hear it.
Yeah,
Um,
because they're he's friendly enough
and then she
with
offers to
them.
cast a sealing spell to just keep the smell down so that the girls don't keep getting sick when they walk past the alley.
Oh, I know. That'd be so gross.
Yeah, I don't think unless you have anything, I don't think there's much about
No, there wasn't
that
much
scene.
there.
Okay. Whiskey Jack, Quickben, and Kalam are back on the hill after the battle. It's been a few days since the battle now. And they just have a conversation about how they think Lysine is trying to get rid of the old guard once and for all.
Yeah. And they're just like kind of speculating. But Whiskeyjack, I think it's interesting because there's still so little you know about most of these characters, but Whiskeyjack especially is just like he just is more closed off the more they talk to him. He's just like, just let me think.
Well,
He's like, stop talking to me.
Kalam and Quickben have a long history, and so they're swapping back and forth and finishing each other's sentences. And he's
Yep,
like, "Enough! You're sounding rehearsed. Stop."
I know. Which I thought was funny. I think Quick Ben as well is just such a funny name. Jeez, all these names. Quick Ben.
Yep. And Ben is his actual like his first name,
Yeah.
but Quickben is his nickname, and people have wondered about that. And I'm like, Lord of the Rings has Sam,
Yep.
Wheel of Time has Matt and Rand, um,
Yep.
Game of Thrones has John and Sam.
Yeah.
So
So you have to have the casual, just easy name thrown in there, you know?
Star Wars has Obi-Wan and Anakin, but then it also has Luke.
Yeah. As Luke and Leia. No,
Um,
I just think those scenes were interesting because how much they want to talk about and have their theories, and he's just like, no, let me sit here, think.
yeah, he doesn't discredit their theories, but he's like, let
Mm,
me think about it before we.
do anything. Because I mean,
He. Oh, go ahead.
oh, I was just like, it's just because he's the veteran of all these campaigns. So I mean, like he knows if there's anything happening, but he doesn't want the. He's one of those guys though that doesn't want his name to be that big though, or he just doesn't
Mm-hmm.
care for it really. Just,
Uh, Whiskey Jack thinks about how an officer came down sent by Taishren to offer. He delivered Taishren's commiserations on those lost in the line of duty, then unloaded a wagon load of tripe about heroism and sacrifice. And 2 hours later, he's found garroted in his room. And Whiskey Jack thinks, "Oh, that sounds like claw work. Colum, didn't you used to be a claw?" And Colum says, "No, dude, it's a setup."
they're just trying to make me look like I did it.
I think that's meant to be confusing and conflicting. I think Colum did it.
Yeah. Well, I totally, yeah, I remember reading that Kalam was an ex-Claw, which I thought I didn't know someone could do that. I thought it was more like a for a life thing or something.
Well, that's why
But
Tattersail is surprised. She says like isn't no one allowed to leave that alive? And he's just like, yeah,
But I did. I'm part of the bridge burners.
yep. We'll find out more about that, Raffo.
Yeah,
The I expected to say Raffo more, but I think you don't have enough information to ask questions that would make me
I know.
say, read, and find out.
'Cause most of the stuff you're just like, look at the glossary, look at the name page.
Yep.
It's like, oh, okay. There's the info.
Sorry has Quick been scared to death. He
Yeah,
says
because
that he
she's like,
never believed in pure evil until she showed up.
she's creepy.
What else? Whiskeyjack says to Quickben, I led the company chasing you across the desert, remember? I know how you work, Quick.
Yep. So yeah, Ben was the recruit from another campaign and
I
joined.
will raffle that.
Yep. We'll get more backstory soon. Yep.
I feel like I'm talking a lot. Did you have any questions about this conversation that they had?
No, I felt like a pretty standard conversation. You just learn more about some of the backstory, like some of their plotting just to show that they're important, I guess. And that like add more to the, because then they start plotting more with Tattersail
Mm-hmm.
because as well, like oh my gosh, what's his name? It's gonna bother me. Um, yeah, oh,
Hairlock?
Hairlock, that's the name. Yeah, kept thinking like Haymitch or something. I'm getting all these names from other books. Uh, yeah, no, Hairlock. Because he plotted with them in the tunnels, is what Tattersail's assuming, because
Mm.
they immediately come up and turn him into the puppet, and so she gets roped into all this. So I just think that's what I remember mostly from that conversation. If I was just this small group starting to plot more and more together without really knowing each other right now.
Yeah. He gives you little moments of like moments that you need to pay attention to kind of understand the characters. Kalam and Quick Ben are grinning behind his back, and Whiskey Jack just says, "Don't get cocky." And
And the grin
then
fades away.
Kalam's mare turns her head and snaps at him. He growled in return. A moment later, the two longtime companions settle down into their mutual mistrust.
Yep.
Yeah, and then we move back to Tattersail. She's kind of on the city wall, and she does another reading of the Deck of Dragons for Tayshren because he wants her help.
Well, did the little Marine boy come and fetch her again?
No,
Or
she was on her way to Tayshren,
that's right.
and then the boy comes and tells her about Bellerden, and she's like, "Well, I'll take any excuse to delay talking to
Leave.
Tayshren."
Yeah.
But then after that she gives the boy the message to tell Whiskeyjack that the fat lady wants to talk.
Yeah. But Tayshram, she doesn't give him too much info. She like misleads him
Yeah, she
is the
does the
thing.
reading. Um, she figures out who the Virgin of High House Death is, but doesn't tell him.
Yep. Which is
Which
sorry.
it's sorry.
The plant.
What else here? Crown represents Darujistan. Um,
Which is
the
the
next
continent.
Darujistan is the last free city. So there was a
On
confederation of free cities, and Darujistan is the last one left after Pale fell. But it's
okay,
on the continent of Genabakis.
that's right. And
Uh,
so Malazan's storming through to collect all these cities.
yes, they want all these cities. They want their trade. They want their money.
Yeah.
They're trying to take over the whole continent, and those cities are the key to doing it.
Hmm.
If you look on the map, you've got Pale in like the dead center of the continent, and then if you just go south across Lake Azure, Darujistan is on the southern shore. It's that gigantic lake near the middle of the map. And uh, the next book two of this novel is called Darujistan.
Yep. Which I just realized, weren't we supposed to read to that part?
Yes. Did you read chapter 4?
No, I forgot. Now I think about
Oh, rip.
it.
Okay.
Because I was like, wait a second, I'm not at Drujistan. Where am I? I was like, oh no, I did
Oh,
not read
so you
chapter
only read to
4.
chapter 4?
Yeah. Oh dear, that's awkward.
Okay, I guess this will be a good. I'll cut all of this out that we just said about you forgetting, but I guess you can read it and we can record on Tuesday or Wednesday, and it'll be my first exercise in stitching together.
Yeah,
Or we could just do it in the next episode and
I mean, we spent a good
say
portion
oopsie.
here.
Yeah, it's been
Whoops,
a
guys.
while.
Yeah.
Um, okay, and then we have our last section of today.
Yep.
Paran arrives in Pale, goes to see Picker, or finds Picker in the barracks. She is not impressed by him at all. Um,
Yep.
the bridge burners have had a long history of terrible leaders that all end up dead very quickly.
Yeah. Because he walks in and his armor is like, it looks brand new. His sword looks like it's never been touched.
Yep.
And so they're just like, who's this shiny greeny guy? Like,
Mm-hmm.
who's never seen anything. It's like,
Um,
because they've placed bets on how long he's gonna die.
yeah. How long it's gonna take him to die?
They're like, he has 20 like bucks on you're gonna die, you're gonna live this long. He's betting against that.
Yeah, and then he goes to the bar, and Paran is he has not learned that sometimes you don't need to say what you're thinking,
Yep.
because he says at the table full of bridge burners, "I've heard your captains don't live too long."
And they're like, what?
He gets up to leave and says, "Tell Whiskeyjack I'm here." And I think its head says, "Do you want to play?" Nah, it wouldn't be good for me to take your money.
Yep.
And then he walks out into the alley and is stabbed.
Yep. But he's not killed, right? Or is that a chapter 4 thing?
Should have read the chapter 4. I think we'll just put that in the next episode.
Yeah. No, but I thought the stabbing thing was weird because like it felt like it came out of nowhere. Because then it's the animer. No, how do you say it?
M&S.
Animus. Oh geez, these names.
Amanas. Amanas. Or Amanus. Or something
Amanus.
like that. Amanus sounds better. I can go with
Yeah,
Amanus.
Amanus. Because and Amanus is the king, right?
The King of Shadow, yeah.
And so he pops up because he's wanting to check on um sorry.
Yep.
But then they find him, so they quick little stab to knock him out.
Yep. They it said that they do it because it should draw Lorn into the fray.
To know that the lieutenant has been stabbed.
Mm-hmm.
Because she's a mage killer, so they want to deal with her.
Yep. Um so Amanus shows up. Sorry says keeping an eye on me. And he says, coincidence. Someone, something I should say, has entered a war and uninvited. My hounds hunt. I don't believe in coincidences, nor do I. 2 years ago, we began a game of our own, a simple settling of old scores. It seems we have stumbled onto a wholly different game here in Pale. Whose? I shall have that answer soon enough. Don't get distracted, Amanus. Lacine remains our target, and the collapse of the empire she rules but never earned. I have, as always, supreme confidence in you, Cotillion. And then the girl says, I must be getting back.
Yep.
So there I think I spelled it out there, but there's some clues
Yeah.
about who Sari is.
Yeah. No, because I remember reading that and I was like, that was a little confusing. But like it gave some nice clues.
Yep. Did you have any other questions or
I feel like this is a read and find
anything
out.
else to say?
Was each book dealing with a different god? like more gods enter the fray slowly.
Uh, yes, but also read and find out.
Okay, we'll do. We'll do the reading.
Yep, I will. It's so hard to talk about anything because we're at the very, very beginning,
I know.
and you know nothing right now.
I know. Like I'm just getting all these hints, and I'm like, is this this? Oh, but I don't. That's probably not that. I mean, I feel like the most fun guess I had was burn sleep. Is that a sleeping god then that they somehow knocked out?
Yep,
I think that
you
was
were
my.
right
I
about that.
was like, that was my fun guess. Feel proud about that.
Yeah. Um, any predictions at all about where we're going?
I don't even know. I feel like where we're going is it's going to be just a big like clash of the Empress and her team with the mage, or the mage is kind of going to be his own thing. With I think one arm's probably just going to die eventually. The old guard will die, but I think Whiskeyjack and the bridge burners with the Tattersail, maybe the Paran dude, will find their way through something fighting them, but then the god will be playing in the background and they'll figure out that's what's going on as well to prevent the collapse. I don't know.
I will give you nothing.
Oh, good. Perfect.
Obviously,
Yeah. Yes, you're correct. Book
but
over. End of podcast.
yes, you're correct. You have guessed the entire 10 book series correctly.
Yes, perfect. All right, we're done. Thanks, folks. That was great.
Yep, that's it. We're giving up. Podcasting career is over.
Guessed it. Write a harder book to read. That's more confusing. uh,
I think it's definitely possible. I've heard that there are contenders out there, but Malazan is definitely one of the top confusing ones. So
I know. Because I thought because I started reading Wheel of Time, and that one it's not nearly as confusing. I feel like it's so much slower.
yeah, listeners, yes, we may be a little insane. We're doing this weekly, but Matt just started Wheel of Time. We'll see if he continues and does the entire run of that. And I am also reading A Song of Ice and Fire for the first time.
I listened to book one of that. That was a confusing start listening to.
I've seen the Game of Thrones show in its entirety, so I know what all the terms mean, and it's not been confusing at all.
Yeah.
But we may be a little insane reading two gigantic fantasy series at the same time.
Well, I have books 1 through 3 of Wheel of Time. We'll see how long it takes me to get through those.
But if there's nothing else, thank you everyone for listening to this first chaotic, messy episode of the podcast of the Fallen.
Gotta love it.
We'll see how my editing skills work. And we'll see how it turns out. But
yeah. Thanks for listening, everyone. It's like the aftermath of the first couple battles. We're a little confused. We'll try and keep it neater next time.
Yep, we went for longer than we thought. It's been about an hour and 40 minutes.
Jeez,
for 3 chapters. So I think the next book. Oh, perfect. The next book is only chapters 5, 6, and 7. So we can just do 4, 5, 6, 7 next time.
They'll be about the same. The 4 we did today.
Yep.
Don't worry, we'll do a book at a time in the future. Now that I
until we get to
understand.
book 2, and there's only 4 books per book.
Yes.
Yeah. But we'll do about 3 or 4 chapters a week from here on out. Thank you everybody for listening, and we will see you next week.
See you next week.